So some of the mistakes that I've seen people make if they eventually get involved in a legal case, number one at the outset is they, and this is not anyone's fault. I mean, it's easy to say, quote unquote, the wrong thing when you're in a stressful situation. If you were just in a car wreck, and especially if you're hurt, and people just immediately start asking you questions and what happened and who ran the red light or who was at fault. And if you have an injury and you're stressed out, or there's someone in your car, a passenger who was injured, especially if it's someone, you know, a loved one, a child or a spouse, for example, and you're worried about them, it can be easy to, quote unquote, say the wrong thing. And what that means is, you know, things that you say can very often be taken out of context. And one of the classic examples, again, I'm talking about the car wreck stuff because these are easier examples, but I've seen people before who've been asked to estimate how long something took before a wreck happened or how fast someone was going. And I've seen people say, well, you know, I saw this other guy coming for, it was probably about 10 or 15 seconds, which doesn't sound like a long time. But if you sit there and look at your watch and look at how long 10 or 15 seconds is, that's actually a pretty long period of time. And I've seen people, you know, really, by trying to be honest and open at a time when someone's asking questions, someone who doesn't have their best interest in mind, they can do themselves harm without meaning to. So again, if you have a situation like a car wreck, you should obviously always, you know, talk to the police. You should always obviously seek medical attention first. I mean, those things are important. I'm not saying the first phone call you should make should be to a lawyer. That's not what you should do. You should take care of yourself and the people who you care about who may be involved in the wreck. But if it's a serious wreck and you think you may need legal help, you should call, whether it's me or some other lawyer who does this type of work, you should call a lawyer pretty soon, and really as soon as you can. And that's to protect your rights and to make sure that, for example, if an insurance adjuster calls you, and remember, insurance adjusters aren't all bad people, but they have a job to do. And if they're representing the interests of someone who has hit you or hit your loved ones, and you know, they're calling for information, their job is to pay as little as possible for the claim that you or your loved ones are going to make against that insurance company. So they're not there to help. I'm not saying they're there to hurt you. Again, I'm not saying they're bad folks, but they have a job to do. So you need, if you have a case that's going to involve an insurance claim, it's never going to hurt to call the office. If you come office, and I don't think that you need a lawyer, I'll tell you. If you need one, it's always better to know ahead of time. I can also say that I've seen some people make terrible mistakes by posting all about some event that later results in a legal case by posting about it on social media. You know, whether it's before they hired a lawyer or after, and they for whatever reason, again, maybe because they feel like someone has lied about something that they did and they want to get on the record and defend themselves, which again is totally understandable. I know why people do these things, but you should avoid that as best you can. You shouldn't respond to social media posts. If someone, for example, in employment cases, and we do a fair amount of employment work, you may see a coworker who knows that they've done something wrong, and they'll preemptively post about it on social media to really try to defend themselves before you have a chance to talk about what they've done. And then you may feel compelled to respond to that person to defend yourself. Or something bad may have happened to you at work or somewhere else, and you feel like an outlet will be to post about it on social media and get support from friends and family who may be in your social media accounts, and to have an open discussion about it there, which is never the best thing to do. You should avoid posting about anything that may wind up as a legal matter. You should rarely, if ever, post about that on social media. So that's another big piece of advice I give people is, you know, don't put this stuff on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or social media sites like that. And I'll tell you as well that, you know, a lot of times you'll see today defendants in a case, if you wind up having to file a claim against someone, they can get access to your social media account. Not always, but very often they can. And they'll ask, did you put anything on social media about this car wreck, or anything on social media about this claim that you were sexually harassed at work, or did you put anything on social media about whatever legal action you have, personal injury case, otherwise? And if you have, then they may get access to your social media accounts, which is hard to believe, but that stuff very often is not private. Same thing for messages you send. If you send Facebook messages to someone or text messages, keep in mind that those things may be what's called discoverable if you later have a lawsuit. So any messages you send to someone who's not your lawyer, if you send something to me or another lawyer you hire, that stuff should always be private. But if you send something to a friend or a family member, maybe even a spouse, then that information could be discoverable. So be very careful what you talk about, who you talk about it with, and really, aside from talking to your lawyer, who you should always be open with, and it's better for me to know as much ahead of time as possible. Other folks, I'm not saying you shouldn't talk to friends or family at all about what's happened to you, but just be careful. That's a huge piece of advice I give people, is that you just got to, I'm not saying it's wrong to talk about what happened to you, but usually the less you say, the better. It's a good rule to go by.